working in material, it's a back and forth between the artist says this, the material says that. You kind of have to let the material decide things on occasion, and then you have to step in and say, no, this has to go this way. It sounds like a crazy discussion, but I think it kind of works that way. As an artist, I started out in art school thinking I was going to be a painter. I was doing a bunch of painting classes, moving out of the dorms, and managed to lose all my paintbrushes and everything. And the next semester I took a sculpture class and never went back to painting. I make just because it makes it so I don't drive other people crazy, I think, but I also just have a passion of just making. If I'm not making something, I'm not happy, and it doesn't really have to be artwork, it's just an act of making. These pieces, I've just come to call them inflatables, just because that's the process itself. They're just these inflated objects. I'm really interested in object and have been interested in items as objects for a while. You drive across the Midwest or even where I grew up in Oklahoma, and you see farm equipment sitting out in a field, and you'll get a cluster of them, and they're just become these strange, unknown objects kind of laying out in a field, and they have color applied to them. I've always been interested in basic form, whether it be triangles or circles. And one of the aspects of the work is the form, and it's all based off of circle geometries. The technique itself, I didn't originate it. It's one of those things that lots of people have done this type of technique, but I think the way that I'm approaching it is a little different than the way that most blacksmiths approach it. I'm really more interested in sculpture and art than I am a technique as a blacksmith. So I cut out the steel plates, and then I start folding them into the patterns. When you're making, one piece informs the next piece, and the next piece informs the next piece, and so you're constantly working from the piece you just finished, which creates the next form, and you play from that next form, or you go back to a form you used previously and apply those shapes to a new shape that you'd come up with. I got it all but one of them closed up now. I mean, it's pretty quick to go from flat plate to having a form, but I mean, it's still just this flat, lifeless thing, and let's give it some life. I don't think there's a type of person that appreciates the work. I think it can be a wide range of people that interact with the work. There has to be some sort of visceral, instant response. Somebody has to respond to it on an emotional level and on a gut level first, and then they can start to appreciate it on a formal level and on a conceptual level. And I've had people drive by my shop and see a piece out in front of the shop that have no connection with the artwork, no connection with the art world at all, and they'll stop and ask me about the work. And I think that's a real good indicator that I'm striking some sort of basic form that people can respond to. By putting all the pieces together and welding them, you obtain kind of an internal volume inside that you can start to fill with the air. So you put them in the forge at that point, heat them up, preferably right around 2,000 degrees. Sometimes it's lower than that, and then start to inject the air into them. The heats can take multiple heats on a piece. Sometimes it can happen in one shot. Depends on how complex the piece is. The more complex the piece, the more times it's going to tear and has more stress in it, and it's just not going to, be able to expand easily in one go. So I work on 3 pieces at a time because when I have to stop and patch in a hole, sometimes on the larger pieces they're too hot to get close to, so I got to let them cool enough to be able to weld. Otherwise, it's just too hot and start smoking if you get too close to them. So if you have 3 pieces, you can throw another one in the oven while that one's cooling down, and then inflate that one, patch in the other one after that one's done, and that makes it so it don't quite get burnt up. That's where the real fun is inflating these pieces, because there's so many things that can happen. The weight of the piece can affect how it inflates, whether one side of the piece is hotter or cooler than the other, whether it's going to expand there or not. And that's where there's a lot of chance that happens in the work. I know what they're going to do with the form. I know a certain fold is going to create a certain wrinkle, but I don't know exactly where that wrinkle is going to occur along that line. And sometimes it surprises me, and you get these really beautiful shapes that fall across each other that are unexpected. But that's where the real fun and kind of spontaneity happens in the piece. I like the sculpture to be approached as an object, so I really enjoy them on the floor, off the pedestal. It definitely changes the way the viewer reacts with the piece. There's not a top and a bottom. There's not a side that's more dominant than the other. They're a complete object on all sides. You can roll them over and they have just as much interest to them. There are ways that I like them more than others. They just have more aesthetic appeal to them, but I really want the viewer to interact with them as object. If they go outside, they continue to oxidize down and become more iron oxide, and eventually those surfaces are probably going to rust through. And I think that's just kind of how the piece is going to age and change and evolve as an object over its lifespan. It may not be as archival as some people would want, but I think that's just the reality of objects. They don't maintain, they aren't the same thing forever, and they have an evolution and a lifespan in them. I'm at a point where the work feels like it's about to want to change, or I'm going to change, and I don't know how much longer I'll continue to make this exact work. As long as I have ideas for it, I'm going to keep making them, but how I'm using the forms, I think it feels like they're about to change. So where it's going to go, I don't have no idea, but the past couple of years it's felt like I'm at that kind of edge that I'm about to jump off of, and I don't know where I'm going to jump off into, but I feel that. So just keep inflating them until I just can't come up with any other ideas to inflate.